recorded?
No, I haven't. I'll start that right now. All right. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming today. And I want to say thank you on two accounts here. The first is for those who know Corey and I and who have been in our classes and come to our group stuff that we do like this, and you guys are willing to come again and listen to what we have to say. Thank you. And for the new people, thank you for being open and curious about what we're going to speak about today, because I think the information that we have is going to be something that you're going to be able to take with, and it's going to take with you, and it's going to be useful, and maybe bring hopefully some clarity, I'm sure, and just information so that it'll help you through your journey. And one of the questions that Corey and I asked to each other is like, why are we presenting this information today? And like I said, this is about helping each of you create clarity in your life. And you know, we're not up here to say we have all these answers, because we don't. We have information. And so that's what we're sharing today, is we're sharing the information that we have and that we've studied and that we have learned with all of you, so that you can take it and walk through whatever doors that you have in front of you, maybe with more insight and perspective. And also, I think the information helps give a sense of validation for ourselves and our lives, with just seeing that. Come on in. Right in front. So this information is also here to help you further evolve yourselves and refine yourselves as you move through life. And so as we begin, we're going to set this up a little bit. And the first thing that I want to encourage all of you to do is to, you know, I know that we need our literal mind to, take in information, but I'm asking all of you to just really kind of settle into your bodies and just be open to whatever information wants to come in and let it in. Okay, so if there's things that you don't understand, please raise your hand, ask a question. Corey and I are we have broken this down to the most simplest way of giving this information without making this about astrology, because it's really not about astrology. We're using astrology as a tool, just like you use any other type of tool to see yourself through. And so, but we're going to be speaking a little bit of the language of astrology, but nothing that you guys aren't able to understand. And I know some of you get it. You've been around astrology for a while, and others, this is a whole new concept. And for those of you who aren't as familiar with astrology, this isn't about horoscopes. It has nothing to do with that. This is about really an art and a science and interpretation, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to use astrology and use the symbols and themes that come up for these different planets, and tell you what those are about. It should be pretty cool.
Right, and we will also be adding into that archetypes as well.
Right.
Because archetypes and symbols are very important in what we do and how we present our information. Again, you don't have to know anything about them, but they will probably make sense to you when we let you know what they are, because they're parts of our psyche, collectively and personally.
And also, as you take in the information, and we give information, to really stay neutral with it, not to bring any form of negative or positive to it, or any forms of judgment. Okay, so just try to okay, this is information that I'm hearing right now. And so we are going to be talking today about cycles in astrology, and one in particular. And Corey, you want to tell them about the cycle we're going to be doing?
Yes, so again, you don't have to know anything about astrology, but we're going to be using astrology as a tool. So I'm going to try to explain things really benignly when we first take a look at this, just to kind of give you an overview of what a cycle looks like. So this is just a chart, and what we have is a snapshot of a moment that creates a chart, just like you all have a chart, okay? And we're not going to be looking at our own charts today. We're only just using this as an example. But really what a cycle is movement. This is a static moment. Everybody has a chart. It's a static moment, your first breath. It's the beginning of your life, just like any chart would indicate that. And so what we're going to be looking at is what is dynamically happening now with a specific planet that's going to indicate where we need to focus a lot of effort and discipline, and that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be talking about a planet that happens to have moved from its position where it was initially and is now sitting somewhere else, that it's moved around this chart and is now sitting over here. And so that's kind of an indication of a cycle. You don't have to know the cycle. We're going to explain it to you what that means without you having to know about this. Does that make sense? Because again, it's not about astrology. So we're just going to be talking about this planet archetypically and symbolically. And we're going to be talking about a specific sign archetypically and symbolically to give you a reference of what's happening now, what's happened in the past, and what's going to be happening soon in the future. Okay, does that make sense?
But it's not prediction.
No, it's not. This just helps us navigate. It's a tool for navigation. It just helps us have a little bit more clarity, and I would imagine that a lot of the themes that we'll talk about, people will be nodding their heads going, oh yeah, I can relate to that, if that makes sense. Okay? So part of what we're going to be looking at is the past, looking at what was happening for you during 83 to 85.
1983.
1983 to 1985. Just ponder that now, because we're going to ask a lot of questions. If you weren't born yet, then that doesn't apply. I know that doesn't apply to you, Erica, okay? But things will. If you had children born during that time, very significant for them, and some things that are happening for them that are significant now. Just, that's part of cycles. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So again, looking at in your own mind what you were pondering from 1983 to 1985, what are you going through now? What kind of things? How has your awareness shifted since then? What have you learned since then, that time in your life, what you were going through? Just something to ponder, because we're going to be bringing all of that up in this section now. Okay? So we're going to come back to this, but this doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter for now. Okay, so part of what we're going to be looking at is themes today. So archetypal themes, symbolic themes, okay? So now we're going to talking about the planet.
Yep.
Okay, so the planet that I was pointing out, you don't have to know this, is the planet of Saturn. So why Saturn? Teresa asked me this morning, why Saturn? Well, here's the thing, Saturn anywhere in our collective unconscious, in our collective conscious says, look here, this is the reality of the situation. You must work here, you must focus here. You are, things are coming through you that must be addressed now, okay? So that's why we felt it was very important to talk about this class in general and what we're talking about, because soon we're going to have a shift into another sign. But we have to look and see what we've been doing and what we're continuing to do and look at, so we can learn about how we can apply that to the future. Okay?
I'm going to say something real quick. So this is an overlay for those of you maybe who aren't getting this. This is an overlay that we're doing. So we have the planet Saturn, and the planet Saturn is in a particular sign, like what you said, right? So Saturn is one of the overall things that we're all feeling that you're going to start to talk about right now. And then we will overlay that with the sign, so that it brings more, it gives a much more descriptive kind of theme and more direct of really what's happening.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Are you guys, everybody like on board with what's happening, what we're talking about right now?
Okay.
Good, yeah, okay.
Okay, so Saturn is, the reality of what's happening now, like I said. So Saturn is all about making adult, mature decisions, okay? It is a reality check. It's time to get real. It's a time where we get rid of things that are not working, and we focus on strengths that are inside of ourselves. It shows us what our personal limitations are, and it also shows us what our inner strengths are. And it slows everything down so that we can look at that, the reality of what that is. So it shows us things literally and metaphorically. And so here's how I can kind of explain that. Saturn, if you were going to talk about that archetypically, is the container of our personality. This is who I am. This is what I've built. This is what I've focused on. This is me and who I believe to be, because I have put all of this effort and work into myself, and this is who I am. So I'd pose a question to you real quick. How different are you now from when you were in 1983 to 85? See the progression of the wisdom. See the progression of the knowledge. Okay, just going to point that out. So Saturn literally rules mortality, our body, the container of our body, the structure of our body, the skeleton and the skin. It's what holds us all together. So it would also metaphorically hold together the container of the personality. This is who I am. As we know, we're not static, we're always growing, we're always changing, we're always applying ourselves to something new. So we are really ever changing. This is who I am based on what I know to be true, what I've practiced, and what I understand, okay? And I've built this over time. Saturn is the ruler of time. So part of what we can also discover is that there's a sense of function that comes from Saturn, and also dysfunction that comes from Saturn. If we apply ourselves well to something, we become very good at it. If we don't apply ourselves to something, we're not too good at it. It's kind of like if I want to learn an instrument. I apply myself and I practice, and then I become very proficient and I become a master of that. If I don't apply myself and I only do it once in a while, I probably wouldn't feel so good about how I was doing that and how that would feel.
And Saturn is the planet and is the energy that helps us to accomplish those things.
Yes.
So if we're struggling with that type of discipline, then that's where we can say, okay, how am I not, taking responsibility for what it is that I want to create in my life? So while Saturn can feel like, right, like you said, it's kind of like this energy that feels like it's kind of being contained, but it's also what's creating us as well. So there is some form of a paradox in that, because it is the foundation of who we are.
Yes. Okay, so Saturn is the gatekeeper and is also the authority. This kind of says, well, this is who I am. I can keep people out, or I can also open myself wider and become the authority of whatever it is I want to discover. So really, when we're looking at Saturn, we're looking at our external authority and inner authority. What has authority over me? What has authority over my life? Am I the authority in my life? So we're always discovering that when we're looking at Saturn. So Saturn really is about the mastery of self-awareness. Because over time, our authority develops. It felt like we're polishing our mirror all the time with Saturn. We're always taking this personality cover that we have and we're perfecting it, okay? So in alchemy, Saturn is lead. It's that which needs to be burned off. So as we know, during that burning off, there's chaos. So with Saturn, there's always a little bit of chaos before the new gold is discovered. The things melt and things transform into the next thing. So one of the things that Saturn also is about is, we call it the midwife of insight. Why? Well, if I have my personality, and this is who I think I am, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of focusing on, through that reality check that Saturn says, things that aren't so easy, things that are hard, things that are arduous, I have to kind of concede to them. I have to let myself go into them. And, some of that can be depressing. But as we know, sometimes we have to dig really deep for insight to come, for illumination to come. It's kind of like, that sense that things will pass, this too shall pass, that heaviness kind of goes away. So Teresa and I were talking, what would that mean archetypically? This is giving birth. Okay, this is Saturn transits. The dynamic piece of what Saturn can teach us is like giving birth. What happens when we're giving birth? Anyone? It's painful, right? It's a struggle. It feels like it's not going to end, right? It seriously gets your attention. It makes everything stop. It makes you focus on just that next breath. That thing must be moved through you. And I'm calling it a thing because metaphorically it's the same thing. We're always giving birth to new insight, to new forms of what our personality can be molded into. Does that make sense? So here we are, just kind of birthing ourselves. Yes, there can be struggle, and we know we can't stay in that canal, right? We've all come through one. We can't stay in there forever. There's the struggle, there's the pain, so part of it is that pushing through and coming out the other side, even though it's really hard. Saturn does rule things that are too crystallized, you know, and so if we don't work with the energy, we can be kind of stuck in form that may not serve who we really are. So we're kind of always looking at, without judgment, the more positive or negative, or maybe more conscious or unconscious uses of what Saturn energy could be.
I just want to say, so as we look at this cycle, it's a 2.5-year cycle that's coming to the end, at the end of this year, which is really kind of cool that it marks at the end of the year. Most cycles don't end that clear like that. And so I just want to ask, have all of you or some of you been feeling this, what Corey is describing on some level with yourselves, in your own lives, that it has been just, you know, more like kind of this, like, what is happening? Almost like you're not moving is what it can feel like. So that's the energy I kind of want you guys to kind of, you know, get in touch with. And then we're gonna, keep going.
Yeah, that's fine. Is the temperature okay? Are people cold? Are you hot? Is everyone okay?
It's cold.
It's cold?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, because I'm feeling cold air too, and I don't want anybody to start freezing if that's.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, we'll just switch it.
Yeah.
So what does Saturn ask of us? It says, well, what's your choice? What do you do? That's what Saturn always asks of us. So it is about self-discipline. It is about responsibility, maturity, definition, structure, focus, sacrifice, conservation, limitations, hard work, commitment. And out of commitment, as we know, comes achievement and success. Yes, there will be fear. Yes, there will be doubt. Yes, there will be sense of inadequacy. But Saturn always shows us that we reap what we sow. So if I apply myself to this area, even though it is feeling a little too intense, I know that I'll be the better for it. If I ignore it, I may have to work on that theme again, and it may take me a little longer. There's no judgment on it, it's just an awareness. Okay? So some of the archetypes that are related to Saturn are the master, the authority, the builder, the architect, the gatekeeper, father and father time. Some people relate that to God. Mother and the queen energy, and also the miser and the slave. So again, we're just kind of throwing these out there archetypically about how things show up in our world, how we might see them. Okay?
So that's the first piece of the overlay that we're doing. So I'm going to give you the second piece, and then we're going to put them together, and I think it'll be more clear and make more sense for you guys. I know some of you already understand it, but it'll get clearer. So the second part of this I'm going to speak about is the sign of Scorpio, because the cycle that we're in is Saturn in Scorpio for 2.5 years, ending at the end of this year. We were moving into another one, and that's what we'll close with that theme. But this theme is Scorpio, has been in Scorpio. And so what is Scorpio? Well, Scorpio is your emotional world. It is the sign of transformation. It is the sign of death and rebirth. It is vulnerability. So these are the areas that have been lit up and that have been challenged for us. It is those places where we have fears where we don't want to go. It's where the shadow lives, where we stay in denial of ourselves. It is about power, control, sex, money. It is the underworld of our psyche. And the sign of Scorpio has obviously this is about intensity. So, already we're starting to see a little bit of you're seeing and feeling the theme that the last 2.5 years has been a real